Hello, my name is Nick, and I would like to welcome you to my series on my BPT journey. This presentation is my own opinion and is not endorsed by any other group. I sat both exams multiple times, and it took me 7 years to complete the training. This may sound like the opposite of an endorsement of why to listen, but through this rocky journey, I had to keep reflecting on and reapproaching this process from numerous angles, which has provided me with what I consider a number of useful insights, which I intend to share so that you may have a smoother journey. However, this is not a rule book, and I simply want you to incorporate the points which help you. This presentation is the 9th in my 10-part series on my BPT journey and focuses on what some considerations are when you pass the clinical exam. Firstly, this is a huge achievement, so make sure you celebrate it and all the hard work you did. As well as celebrating for yourself, also make sure to share the celebration and your thanks with everyone who helped you achieve it. Next will be applications. Usually the deadline for applications comes around the results release date, and it is not uncommon for it to actually sometimes precede it. Specific advice for applications is difficult as each advanced training has different requirements, but some key points are: read what is requested carefully. When answering criteria, provide examples to prove your point. Ask others to read your application for clarity and applicability, and take it seriously. Your written application, usually your CV and response to criteria, are your foot in the door. Not putting adequate time into both of these documents can seriously affect your chances of getting offered an interview. With regards to where to apply, I would recommend applying to all the roles you are possibly interested in, and then later narrowing down your options based on what you are offered. It is usually better to start some form of training and switch than to wait a year and try again. Though again, this is a personal choice you need to make. Next up will be interviews. Again, as there is a wide variety of approaches to medical interviews, it is hard to provide specific advice. General advice would be clarifying the style of interview with the interview board if possible. Most interviews are either more traditional, wanting to know who you are and why you want the role, while others are more about assessing how you would approach a situation. They each require a slightly different approach. So, if possible, find out if you are able to clarify the type of interview you will be sitting. It is definitely worth doing so. Other general advice would be thinking of possible questions and practicing your answers, though be careful not to over practice as you may come across disingenuous, and preparing for the logistics and nerves on the day, as previously discussed for the clinical exam lead up. A resource I found particularly useful for preparing for interviews was Medical Interviews by Picard. The next step after interviews is dependent on the outcomes. If you receive offers, you can pick between them, decide if you want to do dual training or possibly defer. When considering these options, I would recommend talking to your mentors and the consultants and advanced trainees in the appropriate departments. If you are unsuccessful, allow yourself to grieve, take a break, and then when ready to begin, start planning. I expand on this process in the last lecture of this series and highly recommend you viewing it if this is your situation. In both situations, it is important to also reflect on yourself and your journey. It is common for this process to be consuming of a person's life and sometimes their identity. It is therefore important to reassess your goals and who you are and then shift your focus there. I would also recommend involving your support crew in this reflection, as their insights and support can be invaluable during this process. Everybody's journey through BPT is different, As so, everybody learns slightly different lessons and therefore has slightly different knowledge and experience to pass on. Therefore, I would recommend, when you feel ready, consider what you can pass on to the next generation of BPT candidates. The key point for this presentation is that the exam is a milestone, but it is not a destination, and that you have a much bigger journey ahead of you. That concludes my presentation on what to consider when you pass the clinical exam. Thank you for watching and good luck on your journey.